Before we continue with this video, I have a question that I would love to know your answer to in the comment section. Do you believe Trump, or agree with Trump rather, when he says that these are Biden trials? Because Shannon Beam disagrees, but Elena Haba, whoa.
Listen, but the Biden administration's not responsible for this trial.
How can you say the Biden administration's not responsible for this trial?
It's a state trial. It's Alvin Bragg. Whether you think there's a political motive for him, it's not connected to the DOJ. I mean,
Shannon,
the feds passed on these election charges.
Shannon, you should look at how many logs they have of state officials, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, visiting the White House, and then tell me that this is not a Biden trial. I don't care.
The feds pass on this case is the point I'm
You're
making.
right. The feds passed on this case. Also, DA Cy Vance passed on this case, and
years ago, and then it came back.
And Bragg passed on this case. You know when it came back? When he decided to run for office. So tell me how that's not an indication that Joe Biden, who just sent his campaign down here with Robert De Niro yesterday, isn't a part of this. Frankly, any question that we had of that was squashed yesterday. And if you have even more concerns about whether he's involved in this, look at the fact that he is publicizing, literally publicizing for tonight to have a speech if a verdict comes out. That's a sad state of affairs. Meanwhile, our country is falling apart.
Somebody said that they was out there governing this trial like the Super Bowl when Robert De Niro decided to show up. But I'm somebody who's in strong belief that obviously this is in coordination with Biden in terms of these trials and all of these frivolous charges happening against Trump, and why he's tied up in court this whole time. And the man want to come say something after he find out the verdict, which, by the way, still is, we're still awaiting the decision on that. I'm just at the edge of my seat all day, every day, just sitting back like, yo. But Elena Haba, I'm glad that she sat there and she corrected her. And she did so very much so elegantly, just trying to tell her, hey, look at the facts. You got Fannie Willis. Got logs to the DOJ. Got logs to the White House. I'm sorry. You got Nathan Wade, too, by the way. To add insult to injury. You got people who didn't even want to take this case in the first place. Not only that, here's another thing, right? So, obviously, we have Biden, who's the opponent of Trump, right? You know, that's real obvious, right? And then we have the Judge Merchan, or Merchant, however you say that man's name. We don't care. He's out here donating to organizations to stop Trump. Make it make sense.
And ask for the explanation again. And then you find out the judge, not only an Obama donor, donated to the Progressive Turnout Project and its subsidiary Stop Trump. The judge donated to a Stop Trump organization, and his family is going to financially benefit from a conviction. And you touched on this last week. There are 24 sitting judges. This guy's enacting. He's not even on the list. They're assigned randomly. It's statistically improbable that this judge, an acting judge, was assigned the Trump Organization case, this Trump hush money case, and the Steve Bannon case. He was.
And of course, again, just to let y'all know, we're still waiting on the official verdict to be handed out in this Stormy Daniels case in New York with Trump. But here's a brief statement that Trump made today. He spoke for about 8 minutes, but we got about a 40-second clip of him just kind of speaking on the climate of this. And then we're going to dive directly into the latest Trump ad. Man, wow, it's incredible.
But I just want to say that this is a very sad day for America. The whole world is watching. And it's a very sad day for New York. I've gone through 2 of these trials already. It's with the same kind of a judge. It's all worked. It's all rigged. The whole thing, the whole system is rigged. Judge Engoron was overturned 5 times in my case. And he's going to be overturned again. And we were treated very, very badly. And the outside world is watching, and the outside world is just not going to bring their business to New York. And that's going to cost the city trillions and the state trillions and trillions of dollars. Businesses are leaving, and people are fleeing. So
sad day in America for sure. Tell me that this isn't lawfare. And then you got Judge Merchan actually requiring Donald Trump to stay in the courthouse while the jury deliberates. That's just torture. Why he couldn't wait at the crib? Why? I don't know. You know, I literally want to know why. I honestly don't know why. But that ad I was talking about.
Thank you for joining us here today. Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts.
This case is an abomination. You know, it's obviously political. 7 years to try to come up with this case. They're just wrong on the law.
The only crime that Donald Trump is being prosecuted for is the crime of running for president.
Political persecution at the highest level.
They've quite frankly given up on trying to beat it at the polls. Either going to steal it or stop it by law firm.
A Democrat prosecutor elected on a Get Trump platform.
What's going on here is a disgusting disgrace. It is war on Trump, it is war on the Republican Party, and it is a war on the Republic.
This case is the weakest case I've seen in 60 years of teaching, practicing, and writing about criminal law.
I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump.
This judge, I mean, you don't need a prosecutor if you have a judge like this. This judge is not on the level.
It's a terrible case, but the judge has been pretty much a rubber stamp on everything that Bragg has wanted to do.
They're perverting the system of justice. You know, that's where the danger lies. The corruption and subversion of our institutions by the left.
This is the Democrats' entire strategy, to confine President Trump to a dirty criminal courtroom and keep him off the campaign trail where he can bring his winning message to voters across this country.
New York has become a legal banana republic. They are so determined to get Donald Trump.
Look, convicting Donald Trump, that's all they have.
I think they have no cards, and they're depending upon Trump getting convicted.
That Trump train doesn't show any signs of slowing down.
The only verdict that matters is the verdict at the ballot box.
The Trump ad was fire, right? Yeah. And what's not so fire is him having to sit here in court and wait for this deliberation. And now this was 21 minutes ago. It says, here's a reminder of the charges the jury is considering against Trump during deliberations. Donald Trump is accused by Manhattan District Attorney's Office of 34 state felony criminal charges of falsifying business records, specifically pertaining to 11 invoices, 12 vouchers, and 11 checks. Prosecutors allege the payments were not made. Were not a retainer for legal services as they were recorded, but were reimbursements for paying off adult film star Stormy Daniels in exchange for her silence and the life rights to her story in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. While on the stand, Trump's former attorney and fixer Michael Cohen, the GOAT, implicated Trump in the hush money scheme, saying he doled out $130,000 with Trump's approval and was promised reimbursement. Now we all know that this is nothing right here. Okay, so what is the charge? They said here's a reminder of the charge. Okay, I mean, this is CNN, so they said this is a reminder of the charge. What's the charge? They still ain't tell me what the charge is. Let's just keep reading. We might find it. It says charge right below, falsifying business records in the first degree is the charge, y'all. Wow. How did he falsify business records if he had nothing to do with it? If the man literally paid out of his own money or out of a shell company, Michael Cohen, that is. Wow. Paying hush money is not a crime. What prosecutors allege is that Trump intentionally falsified documents to conceal his repayment to Cohen under the guise of a retainer for legal services to hide damaging information from voters during the 2016 presidential election. I call cap. According to the statute, for Trump to be guilty of a felony charge of falsifying business records, jurors must find Trump not only, quote, caused a false entry in business records of an enterprise, end quote, while acting, quote, with the intention of to defraud, end quote, but also that the, quote, intent to defraud includes an intent to commit another crime or aid or conceal the commission thereof, end quote. Prosecutors allege the underlying crime was trying to legally influence the two. Man, all this is bullshit. What's sad is we all know that all of this was decided before it even started. That's just a fact. But I just read that the jurors, what they just did today indicates that the trial that they are convinced that Trump is guilty in this trial.
Jury deliberations resume at 9:30 this morning for Trump's New York trial. A verdict could be handed down today after jurors requested to re-examine several key pieces of testimony. That includes David Pecker's testimony regarding a phone conversation with Donald Trump, Pecker's testimony about the decision not to finalize and fund the assignment of Karen McDougal's life rights, his testimony regarding a key 2015 Trump Tower meeting when he allegedly hatched a conspiracy with Trump and Michael Cohen to help get Trump elected, and Cohen's testimony regarding that same Trump Tower meeting. Nima Rahmani is a former federal prosecutor and the president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers. He joins me now. Nima, read the tea leaves for us. Why would the jury want to revisit that specific testimony?
Todd, reading the tea leaves here, this is good for the prosecution, and this is why. We know the state called David Pecker as their first witness. So when you're a prosecutor, you want to start strong and end strong. And he's the one that directly implicates Donald Trump with this catch-and-kill scheme. So the fact that the jurors are asking for this readback leads me to believe that at least some of them are convinced of Donald Trump's guilt, and they're trying to convince those remaining jurors, whether they're on the fence or they're holdouts.
Why do you think the jury wanted the instructions, the jury instructions, reread to them?
Well, most states, including our federal system, allows those jury instructions to go back into the jury deliberation room with them. New York is unique in that it doesn't. And we heard Judge Juan Merchan read those instructions yesterday, and there were some very important ones. The most important of which was that we know that the business records have to be false, but they have to be in furtherance of or to cover up another crime. And Judge Juan Merchan laid out a few possibilities. We've talked about election fraud. We've talked about campaign finance violations. And we've also talked about tax fraud. So we know that there's 2 lawyers on this panel, and those lawyers are likely leading those deliberations. So they want to sort through those instructions and make sure that they hold the prosecution to their burden in this case.
Here are the possible outcomes as it stands now. Conviction on all 34 counts of felony falsification of business records, conviction on some counts, acquittal on others, acquittal on all counts, or a hung jury. If he's convicted, Nima, where does the, quote, as I'm calling it, pick any crime, don't worry about being unanimous instruction rank on your list of reversible error on appeal? Because looking at this as a former lawyer but an interested observer, it seems like almost everything this judge has done can be and should be reversed on appeal. Your thoughts?
Well, it's certainly an appellate issue, but I don't necessarily think it's reversible error, and this is why. I know the former president is unhappy, but if they were separately charged counts, then absolutely, the jury would have to be unanimous, whether it's tax fraud, election fraud, or campaign finance violations. But if you look at New York law, it just requires that the business records be false and in furtherance of another crime. So as long as the jurors unanimously agree that another crime was committed and the business records furthered or covered it up, that should be enough for New York appellate courts. But
that's
again,
crazy, man. This is insane.
Issue. Ultimately, I don't think the former president will be remanded to custody or sentenced to prison regardless of the outcome in this case, even if he's convicted of all felony counts. So this will just be one additional issue in Trump's appellate team can turn to when they appeal a conviction, if any.
As far as what the outcome will be of this, I love Vivek's take on this.
I think either outcome is going to favor President Trump, and here's why. Once that outcome is behind us, people will see in the not guilty case, what are they going to see? This was a sham trial. This was a trial where Alvin Bragg made a commitment to voters saying that he was going to go after Donald Trump. You name the man, I'll show you the crime. That was his mentality. That's exactly what he did. In the case where he's convicted, nobody in the United States of America could still possibly tell you what exactly was the crime that Donald Trump committed. And if he's being sentenced on that basis, they will see the injustice of that as well. So this has backfired as it should. And thankfully, we will be able to end the weaponization of justice when Trump wins that next term.
This was their plan all along. I'm trying to tell y'all, they don't care if this case don't make sense. They don't care what it looks like to us. And if it gets turned over by appeals next year, this year, they don't care about none of that. They only care about what's happening now, the now optics, how they can smear everything now, how they can convince you to have a certain mindset towards things. Like, they only care about now optics. They want a guilty plea so they can, they want a guilty plea from Trump, but that'll never happen. But they want him behind bars. That's the point of this all. And they want him behind bars because they know that if he gets back in that office,